Now, you do have the number of the conference centre, don't you? Mum asked. Yes, Mum, I've got the number, I said, and the hotel, and your private number should anything serious happen, like a meteor falling on the house. The most serious thing that could happen is Mr. Sparkles getting stuck up the tree. Well, I worry about you, said Mum. Well, don't worry, it'll be an ordinary weekend at Aunt Natalie's house, playing games with Poppy and Pearl, I said. Only I won't be wearing the clothes you've packed for me, was what I didn't say. My name is Charles Forrest. I am 14 years old and live with my mother. I'm a keen amateur photographer. I've been taking photographs for the last 5 years. It's a fulfilling pastime and nowhere near as expensive as it used to be. I hated contact sport, but I loved running of all kinds, long distance, sprinting. I don't know why, but I just loved it. I had a natural ability for it as well. Running kept me fit and lean, and though it didn't give the ripped physique like Mr. Atlas, no one kicked sand in my face, at least not since that incident on Scarborough Beach. My mum encouraged my athletic abilities, as did the school sports here teacher. I had joined the school's athletics team at the age of 12, and I already had a growing collection of ribbons and trophies. But, win or lose, it was a hobby, nothing more, but one I excelled at. Well, that and photography. I was also something of loner. Oh, I had few friends, but I preferred my own company. My father? I haven't seen him in over 10 years. He ran off with his secretary, and we never heard from him again. Mum did not remarry, though she was still a very attributive woman, preferring to raise me and concentrate on her career. She was a businesswoman and a highly successful one at that. In a little over 10 years, she had risen from an executive assistant to head of her own department. Of course, this meant a few late nights and occasionally a long weekend away as I grown up. I spent those weekends staying with my mum's younger sister Natalie and her daughters, Pearl, who was a month older than me, and Poppy, who was 2 years younger. My Aunt Natalie was lively, outgoing and very friendly. She was very close to Mum as they were only a year apart, and Aunt Natalie was always delighted to see me. Pearl and Poppy were always happy to see me as well, and were as different as two related people can be. Pearl was tall and slim with long blonde hair, which she took meticulous care of. Poppy was short and dumpy with an unruly mop of ginger hair, which she took no care of at all. But they were totally devoted to each other. If anyone picked on Poppy, then they had Pearl to deal with. Not that Poppy couldn't deal with bullies, but she needed her big sister's help every now and then. Their father, Vince, had died 5 years earlier. A massive heart attack that had taken him at an absurdly young age. I had very fond memories of him. A tall man, he always had a smile on his face, never raised his voice, and would regularly drop everything to help friends, neighbours, and colleagues. In fact, it had been Vince who suggested letting me stay with them when my mother first had to go away for the week. They had welcomed me into their home and had made feel more a brother and a son rather than a cousin. Mum turned her car into the cul-de-sac to see Aunt Natalie stood at her garden gate. She was waving as soon as she saw the car, and Mum beeped the horn in reply. It was easy to see that two women were related. Both women were tall, both women had long brown hair, and both looked young for their age. In the past, the two women had often been mistaken for twins, despite Aunt Natalie being a year younger. Mum pulled the saloon onto the drive and parked up. Then she climbed from her car and was soon embracing her sister. Natalie, it's so good to see you. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, Deborah. And you? I'm doing very well. Oh, and thank you for taking Charlie at such short notice. Oh, it's a pleasure, said Aunt Natalie, turning to me. Hey, Charlie, how are you doing? I had climbed from the car and lugged my carry case from the back seat. I'm great, Aunt Natalie. I've got a new camera to show you. I can't wait to see it. Let's get inside. Deborah, have you got time for a cup of tea? We were shown into the large house, which was a little too big for 3 people, but it had memories that all 3 were attached to, so they did not want to leave it just yet. Poppy and Pearl were in the living room. Hey, Charlie, said Pearl, and she embraced me, her voice dropping to a whisper as she leaned in close. Just wait until you see what we've got you. Oh? Poppy threw her arms around my waist. Hey, cuz, it's great to see you. Ooh, the fun fair has arrived. We can take you there tomorrow. Let him get settled in first, said Pearl. Anyway, sit down and show us that new camera of yours. Mum did have the time for a cup of tea, and so we sat in the living room and spent the next half hour chatting about our lives, what we wanted to, who we wanted to be, and other things. And of course, I showed them my new camera. It was secondhand, of course, but they approved my new camera. All too soon, it came time for Mum to leave. She bid goodbye to Aunt Natalie and the girls, and finally, she said goodbye to me on the drive. Right, I'll be back on Monday to pick you up. You'll be okay? I'll be fine, Mum. Right, you've got all the numbers if you need to get in touch, haven't you? Yes, Mum. Jeez. I'm only going to get in touch with you if I totally fall out with these guys and there's more chance of the earth stopping spinning. Now go. Mum assumed a saddened expression. Are you that eager to get rid of me? She asked through a pout. No, of course, I just don't want to worry about me. I'm a big boy. I'll be fine. Okay, I'll see you on Monday. I love you. She gave me a kiss on the cheek. I love you too, I said. She climbed into her car, started it up, and then she pulled off the drive. I waved at her until the car was out of sight. When it was gone, I entered the house. From the excited chatter that filled the house, I guessed that Aunt and the girls were upstairs. They were in the guest bedroom when I ascended the stairs. I was not surprised to see my small suitcase had been taken to the room already, probably by Pearl. She and Poppy had most likely argued about who carried it up, an argument that Poppy would have most definitely won. The guest bedroom was tastefully decorated in neutral colours and furnished with old but sturdy furniture. A double bed, metal framed and very comfortable, a desk, a small 3-drawer cabinet, and a large wardrobe. The modern office chair was the most recent item of furniture. Hey Charlie, your mum left already? Aunt Natalie asked. Yeah, she just left. Right then. I'm guessing you want to change? Yes, please. Okay, I'll be in the kitchen making lunch, she said and left the room. Poppy was leaning against the desk. Your clothes are still your suitcase, but I guess you won't be wearing them, Poppy said. No, I won't be wearing those. I hope you'll be wearing something, Poppy said. I'd hate to see you in the nude. Oh, funny, I said. Pop just stuck her tongue at me, okay. Okay, let's go downstairs, Pearl said. Let Charlie settle in properly. She scooped Poppy along as she left the room. See you downstairs, cuz, Poppy called out as Pearl shut the door behind her. For a moment, I sat at the desk and daydreamed about the weekend ahead, thinking about what I was about to do, where I was going to go. Then, I started to unpack the basics from my bag. My toothbrush, toothpaste, and clean towel went into the toilet. I unpacked my laptop and set it on the desk along with my camera, my phone and my wallet which contained my spending money for the weekend. Some £45 in notes and coins. I then made sure that door was closed. It had no lock on it, but no one would come in unannounced and they certainly would not just barge in. I began undressing. My jumper was first along with the t-shirt that was under it, which I folded up and put into the still open suitcase on the bed. Then I took off and folded up my jeans. Finally, I folded up and packed away my underwear. Now naked, I zipped the suitcase up and placed it on top of the wardrobe. I would not be needing it until Monday. In the bedside cabinet was the underwear I would be wearing that weekend. From the top drawer I took a bra and panties in matching blue, and from the second drawer I selected a pair of darkened tights that were greyish in colour. I pulled the panties up my hairless legs and settled the waistband around my tummy. They felt snug and felt a damn sight better than the boxer shorts that I usually wore. Then, I placed the bra around my waist and then pulled it around my chest, putting my arms through the straps. I sat again and pulled the tights on. They were a snug fit and they sat well on my shaven legs. There was new box in the third drawer. It was a bright pink instead of the old grey box that usually sat there. I pulled it out and sat on the bed with the new box on my lap. I opened it up, gently peeling back the pink tissue paper. Now I knew what Pearl had got me. I think that Poppy and Aunt Natalie had helped to arrange this little surprise. It was a new pair of false breasts. They were natural looking and were a size C. I took them from the box and inserted them into the cups of the bra. Then I stood in front of the mirror. After adjusting the falsies first and then the bra, I took a critical look. Not bad, I thought. Not bad at all. They were far from perfect, but once covered they would look okay. I heard the phone ringing downstairs. Probably my mum checking on me despite the fact that she only left me an hour or so earlier. I opened up the wardrobe and looked at the clothes that were hanging there. All girls' clothes, and they were all mine. There were a few hand-me-downs from cousins, especially the schoolgirl uniform that Poppy had given me, but the rest were new and were all mine. The selection of clothes ranged from casual to dressy. I really wanted to wear the light blue party dress, as Poppy and Pearl had the same style dress. Only Pearl's dress was a pale green, and Poppy had a bright pink one. However, I decided that casual was the way to go, and I took a denim skirt that was short and a light yellow top that went with the skirt. They did not necessarily go with the tights, but they did not stand out so badly. I shimmied into the skirt and pulled it up around my waist, but I waited until I had shrugged into the top. I smoothed in down and over my faux bosom and tucked it in before I buttoned up the skirt. I added a white belt that secured the skirt in place. I had hoped to wear a pair of heels and keep up the practice of walking in heels, but they would stand out like a sore thumb to the casual look I wanted to achieve. Instead, I tugged on a pair of white trainers and laced them up. I finally turned my attention to my hair. Despite Mum's insistence that I get a short back and sides, I had let my light brown hair grow out and usually tied it back in a ponytail, using a black hairband. I tugged my hair out of the band and spent at least 5 minutes brushing it out and straightening it before I could style it properly. Soon it was a soft, feminine style that bounced around my face in soft waves. No doubt Pearl would want to style it properly at some point during the weekend. Now that I had completely changed, I took the opportunity to look in the full-length mirror fixed to the inside of the wardrobe. The young teenage boy had gone to be replaced by a young teenage girl. She was casually dressed in a denim skirt and yellow blouse and would not have looked out of place at the local shopping centre. And that girl was me. Obviously, I could not be called Charles anymore, but the girls had come up with an alternative. I waved at the young woman and she reflected my movements. "Hello, Chloe. It's good to see you again." I cannot remember why I wanted to cross-dress, but I do remember how I started to cross-dress. It had been 4 years earlier. Mum had been sent on a week-long conference, so she had dropped me off on the Sunday. Now, I had finished school the week before, so I was free. Or so I thought. Poppy had other ideas. It turned out that the girls had one more day left at school, but it would be a party day. They would take board games with them, the teachers would provide cakes and sweets and savouries, and there would be a disco. Poppy had convinced her mum to let me go to school with them, and it sounded good to me. There was one slight drawback. It was fancy dress. Poppy had a Snow White costume, and Pearl had a rather elaborate witch's costume. I didn't have a costume, and I thought I would just wear my casual clothes. Poppy had another idea. Maybe I could wear her uniform. I balked at the idea at the first. The idea of dressing as a girl was anathema to every masculine trait I held dear. Poppy had recommended her uniform, but had not pushed me. Aunt Natalie just smiled and agreed that it was a good idea. Pearl, on the other hand, kept pestering me. "It will be fun. You can bet that the other boys will dress as girls. It would be a laugh. They would have fun. They might fool others, especially the boys." Eventually, she wore my down and I agreed to wear Poppy's uniform, though it was more out of necessity than of actually wanting to wear a skirt. Aunt Natalie had gone online while Pearl had persuaded me to wear Poppy's uniform and had bought fresh underwear for me. 3 vests, 5 pairs of panties and 3 pairs of socks. They were shorter than my usual socks and had a lace edging to them. They were nothing like my regular socks. I packed away the underwear and went to bed, but not before I picked up the uniform. The next day, after a hearty breakfast, I went to my room and changed into the uniform that lay on the desk. I stared at it for a few moments, of course, debating on whether or not to dress as a girl. In the cold light of day, it did not feel like such a good idea. I was on the verge of changing my mind, actually. But then curiosity set in. What if I did dress up as a girl? What would it feel like? How would I feel? I have always been a curious person, always eager to push myself towards new experiences. I had a good idea who I was and who I wanted to be. But what if there was someone else within me? What if there was another side of my personality that I could find, something I could experiment with? Curiosity got the better of me. I put on the panties and the vest, and then I put on the socks. The uniform was next. First the blouse, and then the skirt. Tucking the blouse in, and smoothing the blouse down, and then the skirt. I buttoned the blouse shut, and then I added the tie. I stepped into the shoes and buckled them up. I had to admit that the clothes felt different somehow. They felt nicer. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I looked like what I was, a young boy dressed up as a young girl. But I felt I could not put finger on it at the time. I could not explain how it felt, but I knew how it made me feel. I did feel good. I felt different. I felt empowered. At first I stood in what I thought was a masculine pose, but then I adopted a feminine posture, almost instinctively. I put the thought to the back of my head and made my way downstairs. Both of the girls were delighted at my transformation. Pearl, resplendent in her Snow White costume, was instantly taken in and christened me Chloe straight away. She also promised me and Auntie Natalie that she would take great care of me. Pearl loved the idea of having another big sister, and though she made the same promises to me and Aunt Natalie that she would take care of me, I privately knew that she would tease me almost mercilessly. But it would be in fun, and if anything serious were to happen then, Poppy and Pearl, along with their friends, would make short work of any serious threat that might come my way. But I need not have worried. The day was an immense success, and I was not the only boy in drag. Several others boys were wearing girls' clothes, ranging from sporting outfits to full-blown ball gowns, one of which was homemade. There were games, many brought in by the students themselves, and some of them organised by the teachers and admin staff who ran the school. There was food brought in by almost everyone. Everything, from bags of sweets and crisps, to trays of buns, biscuits and cakes. There were at least 5 trifles, and I get 2 portions of those, and there were 3 chocolate cakes. I missed out on those. And of course, there were sandwiches of all types and kinds. The canteen staff had a lovely time. It had been decided that all the dinner ladies, cooks and servers were not going to work, and that the students would serve them instead. So the entire kitchen staff, all 9 of them, were not allowed to work at all. The day was a wonderful event for everyone, and my costume was greeted with kind compliments and general acceptance. One young man saying I was very brave to dress up in such a manner. Another boy, who was dressed in a ball gown, said he occasionally dressed as a girl and that he was a crossdresser. I had never heard the term before, and I was interested in talking more to the boy, who was calling himself Fiona, though his real name was Philip. I spent a lot of time talking to Fiona. It was extremely interesting. He told me that he had started dressing at an early age with the help of 2 older sisters. His mother did not care as long as he did well in school, and did his household chores as well. His father did not care either, though he admitted it was something he would never do. But as long as Fiona was happy and in good health, then he did not care. Then, our conversation turned to me. How long had I been cross-dressing? Oh, this was the first I had ever worn a skirt, and I had almost backed out of it. Would I dress as a girl again? I didn't know. Maybe not. We exchanged phone numbers after our talk, and we went out separate ways. I spent the rest of the day wondering about our conversation. As I said, I had never heard the term crossdresser before, and I was intrigued by the concept. Encouraged by Fiona's words, I decided to conduct some research into the term and its meaning over the next couple of days. The last day of school came to an end, and we walked home. We spent the 10-minute walk talking about the day and the events, and I felt more included than usual. That is not to say the Poppy and Pearl kept me at arm's length. We were family, and they treated me more like a brother than a cousin. But that day, they were treating me as another girl. It was an odd feeling, but I liked it as well. When we got home, I contemplated changing clothes and going back to plain old Charlie, but something held me back. Something kept me in the skirt and blouse. I was enjoying being Chloe, enjoying being someone else while still being me, if that makes sense. When Aunt Natalie came home, she was keen to hear about the day, and while Poppy did all the talking, Pear and I chimed in with snippets of information that both added to Poppy's stories and kept them in check as opposed to running wild, which was her default setting. When Aunt Natalie was fully informed of the day, it was late afternoon turning to early evening. There was plenty of food in us, so Poppy and I made sandwiches for everyone. Over that following week, I was encouraged by Poppy and Peel to dress up in their hand-me-downs and trying to find what they termed as my style. They taught me proper skincare and how to look after my hair. I also called Phil and was surprised when I learned that he lived not far from me, a short bus ride away in fact. He and I spoke for over an hour, and I knew he would be a good friend from then on. When the week was over, Aunt Natalie and I, dressed as Charlie, once more, sat in the living and discussed the week that had passed. She was more than happy for me, keep dressing as Chloe, but my mum may not be so happy. Deborah was definitely not homophobic by any measure, but how she would react to Chloe was another matter. We decided that we would keep Chloe a secret for the moment, but that I would have to tell her eventually. Over the years, my collection of clothes had grown, and my understanding of cross-dressing had deepened. Once regarded as a sexual perversion and treated with suspicion and disdain, it was now seen as an exploration of one's identity, and often of their real selves. Some men were even convinced that they were born in the wrong body and were given sexual reassignment surgery. Of course, I was too young to fully understand all the information that I was absorbing, but that did not stop me. And of course, I needed to sift through a good deal of rubbish to find the proper and unbiased information that I needed. I almost skipped down the stairs to hear my cousins discussing the weekend's events in the kitchen with Aunt Natalie, though arguing would have been a better term in Poppy's case. She was not shouting exactly, but her voice was loud. But Sunday is 2 whole days away. Why do we have to wait until then? The fair will be there for a week, so it will still be there on Sunday, Aunt Natalie said. It will be too busy tonight and tomorrow. It won't be as busy on Sunday, but it will still be as fun, Pearl added. I entered the kitchen. Hey girls, I said. What are we talking about? Poppy's face was thunderous as she turned on me, though her anger was not actually directed at me, at least not yet. Mummy said we could go to the fair tomorrow and now she's saying we'll have to wait until Sunday, she wailed. Aunt Natalie spoke up. I made no promises to take you on Saturday. I only said I would take you over the weekend. I think the majority of the town will go tonight or tomorrow, so Sunday would be a better choice. Don't you agree? Oh, okay, Poppy said. She sounded like she had given in, but the way she was sat, her arms and legs crossed, her face and contorted mask of disappointment and anger, told a different story. Pearl obviously did not care whether we went on Saturday or Sunday, or whether or not we went at all, but she was also saddened by Poppy's reaction. Cheer up, little one, she said softly. We've still got tomorrow free. Hey, we can go to the wildlife park. That will give Chloe the chance to use her camera, I suppose, said Chloe. She still sounded unhappy, but as she had uncrossed her arms. Right. Today I need volunteers for a shopping trip. Just the local supermarket, as I only need a few essentials. Pearl stood up immediately. I'll go. Chloe, do you want to come with me? I glanced at Poppy, who just shrugged. Yeah, I'll come with you, I said. Poppy cheered up a little. Mum, can I call Melanie over? Of course you can. But stay off the computer, okay? Oh, I don't want to waste my time on that thing. I'm thinking of going to the park with our friends. Poppy, all smiles now, leapt up and almost ran from the room. Good. You need to get out more often anyway, Aunt Natalie called out as she left. Pearl, are you going to the supermarket now or later? Oh, now. Once it's done, it's out the way, Pearl said. Is that okay with you, Chloe? Yeah. I might need a jacket. Pearl was already heading out of the kitchen. I'll lend you one. Oh, I've got a denim jacket that will go perfectly with that skirt. I'll come up with you, I said. I need to grab my camera. Following Pearl upstairs, I headed to the spare room where I picked up my camera, and then I went down the hallway, where I peeked my head around the door. I was still wary of just barging in. It was my cousin's room after all. Can I come in? I asked. Don't stand on ceremony, get in here. Pearl was looking in the wardrobe when I entered, shuffling hangers about until she found the jacket. Aha! Here it is. Try it on. I took the offered jacket and slipped it on. It fits like a glove, I said, admiring myself in the mirror. Oh, you look beautiful, said Pearl. Come on. Down in the kitchen, we were told what Aunt Natalie needed and given shopping money, a £20 note, and we headed out on our shopping trip. I was used to walking the streets, as Chloe and seldom had any trouble, especially if my cousins and aunt were with me. So the trip to the local supermarket was no problem for me. The spring sunshine was warm on our faces as we walked, though there was cold breeze in the air. For a moment, we walked in silence. What do you plan on photographing? Tins of beans? Pearl asked. Maybe I won't take any photographs at all. But if I see something I want to take a picture of and I don't have my camera, I know, you'll regret it. Let's go to the canal and walk along the towpath. You can photograph something there. But that will add to our journey, I protested. Do you want to use that thing or not? Pearl countered, pointing at my camera. I'll text Mum and let her know we're going by the canal. Come on, it's this way. We set off down a short footpath that led to the canal. I had been along this canal before. Hey, where's that old building that we saw the last time we were here? I asked. Pearl frowned for a moment and then brightened up again. Oh, it's on our way, it's just around the corner. It took us a few minutes to reach the old mill building. The company that owned it had long gone out of business, and the mill was abandoned. There were broken windows that held hazardous shards, dirty debris covered the floors, and various works of graffiti covered the walls. Now, I like old abandoned buildings. There is a certain beauty in the decay, a beauty that I wanted to photograph. It was Pearl who spotted the way in. Ooh, look, there's an open door. Should we go inside? I didn't need asking twice. I was surprised she even asked once. Let's be careful, though, I said. We spent nearly an hour exploring the building from cellar to roof, and I took nearly 100 photos from empty desks to broken and rusted pieces of machinery. I took a few shots of Pearl as well, and Pearl took a few pictures of me. When we had seen everything we wanted to see, we left the building and continued our shopping trip. There was a gang of boys outside the supermarket. There was only 4 of them, but they looked like they were there to cause trouble, calling each other names and play fighting and generally being loud and obnoxious. But I knew better. They were just lads, being lads. Pearl made a beeline for them as we approached. Hey, Alex, how are you doing? A tallish young man looked up and broke into a smile. Pearl, I'm good. You? He said, striding up to embrace her. Yeah, I'm fine, she said. You remember my cousin? Of course, Alex gasses at me curiously. Chloe, right? I shook the offered hand. At the moment, yes. He shrugged as if he didn't care, but I knew that my cross-dressing bothered him a little, but he was too polite to say anything. What are you up to? Pearl asked. Oh, nothing much. Just hanging out. You can only spend so much time playing video games. And you? Oh, just doing some shopping for my mum. Right, said Alex. He pointed at my camera. Did you get any decent shots then, Chloe? Yeah. We looked around that old abandoned mill that sits on the canal. I turned the camera on and switched to the preview function. Would you like to see? Nah. Thanks. But urban exploration isn't my thing. Your loss, I said. Anyway, we should get going, said Pearl. Are you going to the fun fair over the weekend? No, actually. I'm going to the movies. I'm going to see that new action flick. Well, have fun at the movies. We left Alex and the boys and entered the supermarket. We only needed a few essentials, so we grabbed a basket and began our shopping. Are you and Alex an item? I asked. Pearl managed a shocked look. No, we're not, she said. I know he'd like to go out with me, but he's too immature for me. Oh, really? Yeah, he may be bright, but he acts like he's 10. Like wanting to see that boring film. He's wanting to drag me to see it. I wouldn't mind seeing it myself, Pearl rolled her eyes. But it's not as if it's a date movie, I added quickly. Aunt Natalie only needed a few essentials, so the shopping didn't take long, but the supermarket was surprisingly busy. It took us a while to get to the cashier. If anyone spotted me, if they noticed me at all, then they said nothing. They either mistook me for just another teenage girl, or if they saw, or guessed that I was not as I appeared to be. Again, the other customers said nothing and did nothing, though one old woman did look at me as if she had a bad smell on her top lip. The cashier was pleasant enough. She seemed to be a few years older than we were, but still only in her mid-20s. The name tag read Luca, and she was taking an interest on my camera. Is it just a hobby, or are you planning to take it further? She asked. I hadn't thought that far ahead, to be truthful with you, I said. It's just a hobby at the moment, so I'm good, but not good enough to. Luca was suddenly frowning. Never say you're not good enough, she said sharply. You be the best photographer you can. And do you plan being a cashier all your life? Pearl asked. Luca was smiling again. Oh, this is just part-time. I study hairdressing and cosmetology at the local college. I hope to start own salon when I finish. I've already get 2 friends who are willing to go into business with me. Pearl was clearly impressed. Good luck with that, she said. Our walk home was a little quicker than our walk there, but then we were walking along the streets, and there were no abandoned mills to distract us, though a derelict house did provide a brief photo opportunity. Hello, girls, Aunt Natalie said. Did you got everything on the list? Yes, we did. Though I couldn't find the exact brand of ketchup you were after, so I got another brand. Aunt Natalie checked the bottle and nodded approvingly. Oh, that's fine. Did you get to use that camera, Chloe? We took a look around that old mill by the canal. We found a way in. Oh, that mill is a dangerous place, she said. I hope you were careful. We were very careful, Pearl said. Besides, we've done it before, and I've told you not to do it before. Oh, stop worrying, Mum. Chloe and I are big girls. At least we didn't wear heels. Aunt Natalie shook her head sadly and continued to put the goods away. You girls just don't listen to me, but it's done now. I look forward to seeing the photos, though. I was already taking the flashcard out of the camera. I'll transfer the photos now, shouldn't take more than half an hour. Then I can connect the laptop to the TV in the living room, and we'll have a sideshow. You can do that? Aunt Natalie asked. Hey! Chloe can do anything. She is one tech-savvy bitch. Language Pearl. I will not have you swearing like a navvy. Sorry, Mum. We entered the hallway, but as we began to climb the stairs, Pearl stopped me. You can do what you said, can't you? Do what? Can you connect your laptop to the TV in the living room? I shrugged carelessly and grinned at her. With the right cable, I can conduit to any TV. Pearl smiled at me, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Like I said, you are one tech-savvy girl. We continued up the stairs, and I shrugged my way out of the jacket as I went up behind her. I held it out to her before she could enter her room. Here you go. Thank you for letting me borrow it. She glared at the jacket and then shrugged. You can keep it. I don't need it anymore. Oh, thanks. You're welcome. I went into my room and put the camera on my bed and the flashcard on my desk. I placed the denim jacket on a hanger and put it in the wardrobe. I then put the flashcard into a card reader and connected it to the laptop. I soon had the photos on my laptop, then began the long, laborious task of cataloguing and naming the photos. The photos of me as Chloe were placed in a separate folder as I didn't want my mum to find them. Now, she respected my privacy, so she would not have to go snooping, and I gave her no reason to do so, but my cautious nature made me secretive about this side of my life. Of course, I did feel guilty about keeping my cross-dressing a secret, but I was scared of her reaction. Would she accept this part of my life, or would she reject it? Would she even reject me? I knew I would have told her eventually. I could not keep it a secret forever, but I would prefer to be the one who told her instead of her hearing it from someone else. However, I still did not know how to tell her. Aunt Natalie, Pearl and Poppy were prepared to keep my secret, and though I appreciated their discretion, I felt deep down that placing that burden upon them was somehow wrong. I finished naming the photos and then went on to Google, trying to find out more about the mill that Pearl and I had explored. I was interrupted in my investigation by a gentle knock on the door. "Come in," I called. Pearl came into the room. She had changed out of her black skirt and had put on a pair of jeggings, though she had kept the jumper. "Hey Pearl, am I missing something?" "You haven't, but Poppy is. 3 missed calls and she did take her phone. I have to go out and find her. Do you want to come with me?" "Yeah, just give me a minute to tidy my stuff away and I'll meet you downstairs." I tidied my camera gear away, and after a check to see if the memory card was free, I put it back in the Desla. Then I decided to change my clothes for the walk to the park. I threw of the top and shimmied out of the skirt. I chose a black t-shirt with a white collar and a black short skirt. I checked my image in the mirror and thought I looked good, considering it was such a quick change, and the denim jacket looked okay. I put it on, snagged my camera and headed downstairs. 5 minutes later, we were back on the streets and were heading to the park. "So, is Aunt Natalie worried about her?" "Not really, but she is concerned that she isn't answering her phone." I frowned. "Did she take her phone with her?" "Are you kidding? Poppy came out of the womb holding that thing. Her and her phone are welded at the hip. The worry is why she isn't answering it. Maybe it's not switched on," I suggested. "And maybe you need a new head," Pearl countered. "It's never switched off. Anyway, why did you drag that thing along?" "What? My camera? A good photographer never leaves his camera behind. Besides, I never know when I might need it." "Oh, so you're a good photographer now, are you?" "I never said I was good." "That's great, 'cause you make a lousy girl." The voice came from behind us. We turned and saw Lucas Gibbs glaring at us. With him were his 2 cronies, Jezza and Bazza. "What do you gits want?" Pearl snarled. Luke grinned in an evil fashion, having a bit of fun, looking for friends to play with. "Is there a law against it?" "Asked there as if you plan on beating someone up," I said. "Ooh, the pufter speaks," Luke said. "Can you tie your own shoelaces as well? Can you eat your own food or do you need to be spoon-fed? Why don't you just piss off and pick on someone else?" I snapped. "Yeah, haven't you got an off-license to hold up?" Pearl asked. Luke stepped forward, clenching his fists. "Did you just tell me to piss off?" he hissed. "Yes, I did." Lucas, his face a mask of outrage and anger, stepped right up to me, almost nose to nose. I stood my ground, determined that I would not show fear. Jezza stepped forward. "Leave it, Luke. He's not worth it." Luke did not break eye contact with me. He merely held up his hand and Jezza fell back. "You told me to piss off," he hissed. "Yes, I did." I hissed right back. Lucas continued to glare right at me. I was determined not to show any fear. Like a shark smelling blood, bullies could smell fear. And like a shark, bullies fed off that fear, and bullies attacked. For the longest time it seemed, Luke glared at me, and I glared right back at him. Then, he stepped back, his hatred changing to puzzlement. He seemed to be struggling with something. He glanced at the ground, to Ben at me. "I shouldn't have used the word poofter, should I?" he said. "I think the exact word you used was puffter." He broke into a peal of laughter as he hugged me. I broke out in a huge sigh of relief as I hugged him back. "Is that your camera or are you just pleased to see me?" he asked. "Oh, sorry, I stepped back. I had forgotten about my camera." Pearl had also broke into a smile. "You really had us going there, Luke. I really thought you were going to fight us," she said. Lucas looked horrified. "Oh, I wouldn't do that. I don't mind being called a hooligan or a thug, but I will never be called a transphobe, unless that particular person had done something to me first. Anyway, what brings you 2 out?" "Oh, we're looking for Poppy. She isn't answering her phone." "Have you seen her?" Lucas shook his head. "No, but I've not been out long," he turned to his friends. "Have either of you seen her?" Jezza was shaking his head, but Bazza looked over his shoulder and down the path. "I saw a gaggle of wee lassies down by the duck pound," he said, his Glaswegian accent grating slightly on my ears. "I didn't see Poppy with them or if they're still there, but I guess that's as good as any place to start looking for her." "Thanks, Bazza. We'll head over there," Pearl said. "And what about you guys? What brings you out?" "Oh, you know, taking exercise, getting some fresh air and sunlight." Luke began. "Looking for someone to beat up," I butted in. Luke maintained his smile. "I didn't come out looking to assault someone on a whim." I noticed that he did not deny it. Lucas was not the sort of person to start a fight, but he would certainly finish a fight if one started. He was a thug, a deadbeat, and a troublemaker, but he was a decent guy overall, and certainly a guy you wanted on your side. After taking a couple of pictures of Lucas and his friends, we made our way down to the duck pond, where we found Poppy's friends, but we learned that Poppy had actually gone home. Her phone had lost all power, and she needed to recharge it. She had a charging pack, of course. In fact, she had several, but she kept losing them only to find them in a drawer, or under the bed, or on top of the wardrobe. She just forgot to take them out. As Pearl talked to other girls, I managed to get some decent shots of the duck pond. I knew that 2 or 3 swans called the large body of water home, but they did not make an appearance that day. I did get a rather nice photo of the newly born ducklings that had initially attracted the girls' attention. Eventually, Pearl and I turned our feet towards home, began walking towards a night of food and TV. However, it soon became apparent that one of the girls knew that I was not really a girl. "Ugh, that's a boy," she said loudly. The rest of the girls turned on her. "So what?" another girl said. Pearl and I exchanged glances and shared a smile. That evening, we were treated to a fine spaghetti bolognese and we chatted about our day and the events that had transpired. It was light-hearted, though it did get a bit tense when it came to the subject of washing up. Even if it was really a case of who would fill up the dishwasher, it could not be Aunt Natalie, as she had made the meal, so it would either be Pearl and Poppy. I ended up filling up the dishwasher as they discussed the job, though argued about it would be a better description. With the meal out of the way, Aunt Natalie went for a shower, Poppy plopped down in front of the TV, Pearl used the dining room table to catch up with her schoolwork, and I retreated to the spare room to work on my photo collection. I soon finished my work and went on YouTube, a mixture of documentaries and comedic clips, including a series of bloopers from a series that I was watching on Netflix. It was strange to see characters that I knew so well from the show acting so differently in real life. A ringing mobile had me glance up at the clock, and I was surprised to see that it was just past 7 o'clock. The caller ID showed Mum's name, and I answered the call. "Hi, Mum. How's the conference going?" "It's going very well. The company had hoped to secure a major deal, but it's beginning to look as if we're going to secure a second deal as well." "Mum, you're working too hard. I'm only working on one of the deals." "Anyway, how's it going at Aunt Natalie's?" "Oh, it's going well. I've settled in well as always, and I've had a chance to use my new camera. You know that old mill that stands on the canal? You mean the abandoned one? The building that is derelict?" I heard her sigh on the other end of the line. "What have I told you about going into old buildings? I know you've told me not to do it. But you know how careful I am in these buildings. I'm even more careful in a skirt, I thought, but I did not say it. Besides, you know how much I love urban exploration. And love putting yourself in danger," Mum added. I could hear the disapproval in her voice. "Okay, Mum. I promise this will be last time." "Oh, of course it will. Until the next time." The line went silent, and for a moment I thought she would hang up. In fact, I thought she actually had hung up. Then I heard her breathing again. Oh well, it's done now. I realised that she had been holding her breathing. It was her way of controlling her temper. "I just rang to see if you were all right." It was my turn to sigh, and if was a sigh of relief, the severe tongue lashing that she had probably been building up to was no longer forthcoming. However, the sigh also held an edge of exasperation to it. "Mum, I was fine when you left this morning and nothing changed since then. Oh, my little boy is growing up, but I still worry about you. Are Aunt Natalie and the girls treating you well?" "No, they haven't. They've tied me up the garage and are taking it in turns to throw rocks at me." Ooh, sarcasm. I haven't heard that before. "How are they treating you, really?" "They're treating me well. I've been welcomed to the house, and we're going to the fun fair on Sunday. I'll try and get a plushy elephant for you on the coconut shy." "Well, it will certainly make a change from a goldfish. I don't think they're allowed to give animals as prizes anymore," I said sadly. "And they haven't been called them coconut shies in years," Mum said. "So what are you doing tomorrow?" "Tomorrow? I had to think for a moment. "Oh, we're going to the animal park. They have a reptile house now." "You mean lizards and thing like that?" Mum sounded scared. I had no such inhibitions. "Yes, Mum, lizards and things. That's what the word reptile usually means." "Well, rather you than me. You sound excited about it." "Oh, you bet. I like lizards, geckos mainly. I'd love to have one as a pet. Not in my house. Wait until you move out." A knock on the door interrupted me. I turned to see Pearl put her head around the door. I held my hand up, show I was on phone. She nodded and sat on the bed. It did not go unnoticed by my mum. "Who's that?" "It's Pearl. I probably needed for something." "Okay then, I'll let you go. I just wanted to hear from you. Tell your aunt I'll call her later." "Okay, Mum. I love you. And I love you too. I'll see you on Monday." "Yeah, see you then," I said and hung up. I flopped backwards on the bed. Oh, parents can be so exhausting. Pearl nodded. "I know. But we love them all the same." I sprang back up. "Hey, I love my mum." I believe you and I love my mum too, but she can be what's the term, a pain in the arse? I offered. Pearl smiled broadly. That's it. That's the term I was looking for. Anyway, what did you want? We're ready for the slideshow. Your photographs of the mill. Now, you can connect your laptop to the TV, can't you? I looked in my rucksack, searching for the right cable. I was certain I had brought the right one, and I soon found it. I can. It's just a case of plugging this in. Come on. It took less than a minute to connect my laptop to the TV, and less than 5 minutes to set up the slideshow. I even brought down some handwritten notes on the history of the mill that would prove useful, ready answers to questions that were bound to be asked. There were nearly 80 photographs, and all of them of the mill. There were about 20 of Pearl and me as Chloe, but they were in a separate folder. If I were to show one picture every minute, it would take an hour and a half at least. I was expecting the slideshow to be a dull and dry affair, with me displaying my photographic skills to a bored audience. I half expected Poppy to fall asleep. What followed was actually nearer 4 hours, and a very lively discussion with many questions, most of which I was able to answer, either from memory or by referring to the notes I had scribbled down. Of course, my photography was highly praised, Aunt Natalie liking at least one of them, asking me if she could make a print of it. I made a note of the photograph in question and said I would make the JPEG available for her whenever she needed it. Poppy also asked Netto print some of the pictures. Her room was plastered in pictures that she had culled from various magazines and taken from the internet. They were hung up by a combination of blue tack, sellotape, and drawing pins. I was surprised at how late it was when Aunt Natalie announced that it was time for bed. I looked at the clock to find it was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. Poppy did not argue for a change. She simply hugged each of us in turn and gave us each a kiss on the forehead. She left the room without saying a word. Pearl said goodnight to her mum and me as I tidied up the laptop and prepared to take it up to my room. I left Aunt Natalie at just gone 2 o'clock. In my room, I changed out of the skirt and t-shirt, hanging them up in the wardrobe. I took off the tights and the underwear and put them in the laundry basket. I placed the false breasts in their box and put them in the drawer along with my other underwear. I pulled on a pair of plain white panties and a plain nightgown. When the bathroom was free, I went in. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and emptied my bladder. As I lay in bed, I went over the events of the day, what I could have done differently, what I could have done better, and so forth. It was my way of sorting the day's events and becoming a better person, becoming a better me. It did not always work, but it was a habit I had fallen into, and a habit that I could not break. I was roused from a troubling dream that I could barely remember by a loud knocking on the door. I struggled upright in bed. "Who is it?" The door opened and Poppy appeared. "Are you awake?" I stared groggily around the room, slowly remembering where I was. "Sort of," I croaked. I reached for my phone, surprised by how late it was. Just past 11 o'clock. I felt my senses slowly return. I rubbed my eyes and yawned in a long and luxurious fashion. "You need a cup of coffee," Poppy said. "Are you offering?" Poppy snorted. "Do I look like your slave?" I guessed I would be making my own coffee. "How long have you been up?" "Oh, I've been up for ages. Since dawn, in fact." "Is breakfast ready?" It was, about 3 hours ago. "Lunch will be ready in about 20 minutes. You'd better get downstairs or it will be time for tea." She vanished from view and I heard her feet clattering on the stairs. Why couldn't Aunt Natalie have sent Pearl, I thought. I sat there a few minutes, gathering my thoughts. Then I got up. I should have stretched, done my morning exercises, and properly worked out before I got dressed. To hell with it, I thought, and I made my way to the bathroom instead. After I washed the sleep from my eyes and from my senses, I felt a little better. After a proper wash up and brushing my teeth, I felt alive again and went back to my room. I folded up the nightgown and the plain panties and placed them under the pillow. Then I made the bed. From the drawer of the chest, I drew a red bra and red panties and a pair of black tights. I quickly donned the underwear, tucking my manhood away. I opened up the wardrobe and began the process of deciding what to wear that morning and what I was to wear for that afternoon. I chose 2 outfits. The first outfit was a white polo-necked jumper with short arms and a pair of jeggings which were quite casual for hanging around the house in and would go well with the white trainers I had. The second outfit was a light green dress. It was quite short and obviously a party dress, but it was still suitable for a trip out. I hung the dress up and dressed in the jeggings and jumper. I popped the trainers on and laced them up. I brushed my hair into a soft wavy style and checked my image in the mirror. The reflection was that of a young girl and I was quietly impressed. Down in the kitchen, I was surprised to find the kitchen was empty, as was the dining room. Pearl was in the living room reading a magazine. "Good morning, Pearl," Do you want one to cuppa? No thanks. I'm good. She put the magazine down and started out of the window. In fact, I'm thinking of sitting outside for a bit. Isn't it too cold to sit out? Not really. It's quite warm outside. Besides, it's getting a bit stuffy in here, and I'm getting a headache. I looked out at the back garden. It was sunny and there was no indication of any wind, not even a slight breeze. But it was by no means a scorcher of a morning. Well, I don't think you'll get a tan, I said. Where's Poppy and your mum gone? Oh, they're in the garage making space. The council are picking up large items of rubbish and they're sorting out the mess in there. Shouldn't you be with them? I mean, what if something gets thrown out that you want to keep? Poppy merely shrugged. If it's mine and it's in the garage, then I don't want it anymore. She frowned as she saw my outfit, as if she was seeing it for the first time. Are you wearing those jeggings this afternoon? I looked down my casual wear. No, I'm only wearing them for the morning. I've got a dress for this afternoon. Okay. The frown remained. I grew very self-conscious very quickly. Why, what's wrong with what I'm wearing? Oh, nothing, but I don't think that jumper goes with those pants. Still, I'm not wearing them, so what do I know? The shoes look good, though. Well, thank you, I suppose. You're welcome, Pearl said, rising from the couch. I'm heading out to the garden. Are you coming? Yeah, why not? Ooh, let me get my camera. We spent a good couple of hours in the garden on the sun chairs. I managed to get a few snaps of visiting birds and got a great picture of a red squirrel. It was in a tree, so I had to climb a fence to get the picture. We chatted about our schools, ourselves and our lives, and Pearl told me all about a young man at school who she was very friendly with and appeared to be a potential boyfriend. We also kept hearing loud bangs and crashes and sometimes arguments from the garage. So either the clean-up was going well or going badly. Aunt Natalie called us in for lunch in the early afternoon, and Poppy showed again that she was the champion at sandwich creation. Aunt Natalie then took us to the animal farm after we changed our clothes. We were delayed when Poppy decided she needed a shower, but by 3 o'clock, we were in Aunt Natalie's car and on our way to the animal park. It was on the opposite edge of town, so Aunt Natalie had to drive through the centre of the town. The animal park was rather quiet, so we more or less had the place to ourselves. There were dogs, cats, horses, cows, pigs, and, oddly enough, a llama. She was called Annabelle, and though we were warned that she was unfriendly, she seemed to take a shine to Poppy. I got plenty of pictures of Annabelle and Poppy, and she took pictures of us with a very friendly Annabelle. I had to go into the reptile house alone as neither Poppy or Pearl wanted to come with me. The small building was quite warm, and I was shown the various creatures by a volunteer called Emma, who was a little older than me, maybe 18 or 19. We spent a good deal of time in the house, and she even got a bearded dragon out of its cage for me to handle. But there were not only lizards in the house, there were spiders as well, including a tarantula who Emma let me handle as well. Emma was quite surprised at how confident I was with the spider. If Emma suspected I was not a girl, she never said anything about it. I suspected that she did not know, or she did not care. When I reunited with my family, we were all surprised at how late it was. We stopped at a nearby pizza parlour on the way home and ordered 4 small pizzas and some garlic bread, and Poppy demanded some chips, so we got 2 portions as well. When we got home, Aunt Natalie insisted that we eat at the table in the dining and use plates. We ate our food and drank cola as we chatted about the farm, and Pearl announced that she would study to become a veterinarian. After Poppy's demand for chips, she promptly ignored them. After the meal, Poppy announced that she going to bed, and when I too announced that I was going to my room, I could hear her snoring as I climbed the stairs. I then spent the next hour looking through the photos I had taken, sorting them into 2 separate folders. The first were the wildlife I had taken in the garden, and the shots of the animals in the park. I was careful to put any pictures of me as Chloe were in a separate folder and safe from prying eyes. This again raised the question of when I should tell Mum, and more importantly, what I should tell Mum. Aunt Natalie and the girls had known about my initial cross-dressing. It was Poppy who had lent me her uniform that day, and they pressured me to continue dressing up as the week progressed. Though I liked dressing up, it took very little pressurizing. As I prepared for bed, I pondered these questions. I should tell her sooner rather than later. It would be better if I was to tell her as well, rather than her being told by someone else. I woke a little after 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning. I simply woke up and could not get back to sleep, so I got up instead. After my visit to the bathroom, I dressed in a pair of white leggings and a tunic-style grey dress. I added a pair of socks and a comfy pair of slippers. Aunt Natalie's door was still closed, so I guessed she was still asleep. Poppy was definitely still sleeping. Her snore was loud. Pearl was at the kitchen table reading a magazine when I entered. Good morning, Pearl said with a cheerful smile. You're up early. I was wide awake, so I just decided to get up. Good morning, by the way. So, what's on the agenda this morning? She asked. Well, first I have to choose between Wettable and Shreddies for breakfast. After that, I'll wing it. Ooh, Cocoa Pops. I reached for the box. Don't have those. They're poppies, Pearl warned. She will know, and she will hurt you. I paused as I reached for the cereal. I did not know if Pearl's warning was a real or not. I was sure she was exaggerating, but Poppy's wrath was not something I wanted to incur. I took the Wettable instead. Do you want a coffee? I asked. Pearl looked at her empty mug and stood up. I'll make the coffees. You concentrate on your breakfast, oh thank you. As I took the milk out of the fridge, I glanced at the magazine Pearl had been so engrossed in. What are you reading? I asked. Oh, it's an article on makeup, techniques using eyeshadow. Do you want to try them out later? Yeah, why not? As I ate my breakfast, Pearl went through the different techniques that were listed in the magazine, including a tip that would give us a smoky-eyed look, and I listened to her intently. Makeup sessions were a usual occurrence when I visited, and especially if I was Chloe for the day. Pearl was reaching the age when she was beginning to experiment with her image. She was happy trying out different outfits and trying different makeup looks, and I was happy to try those looks with her. Although Pearl could often count on Aunt Natalie's help with makeup, Poppy was no help at all. She was not really bothered about makeup, though she was mature for her age in many ways. She also still believed in unicorns. As far as makeup was concerned, Aunt Natalie was happy for us to try different makeup techniques, and was equally happy for us to wear makeup on special occasions. So perhaps she would let us wear makeup that evening. After our discussion about makeup, we started talking about what outfits we were going to wear. I would wear my black leather skirt and white satin blouse with the black boots, and Pearl would be wearing her yellow top with matching red denim jeans and jacquard. These outfits were, of course, subject to change at 10 o'clock. Aunt Natalie got up and joined us at the breakfast and outlined her plan for the day. We would set off for the fun fair between 3 and 4, depending on what time Poppy got up. Pearl said she would wake Poppy up at 1, if she had not gotten up before then, and make sure that she was ready to go. I think Pearl was more excited about the fun fair than any of us. By 10:30, it was time to practice our makeup, and Pearl and I headed out to her bedroom, where she had a large collection of cosmetics, most of them bought or donated by Aunt Natalie, and some she had bought for herself. What followed was over 2 hours of Pearl and I trying out different looks, using blushes, eyeshadows, lipsticks and foundations. We used magazines, articles and books to try and practice the different techniques to perfect different looks and effects on ourselves and each other. Even my laptop got co-opted into our session. Aunt Natalie popped in from time to time to offer beverages and comment on the looks we accomplished. She complimented us on some looks and did not like others. She especially did not like the goth-inspired makeover that we had tried. But we did not like it either. We had only tried it to see if we could do it. And we could, so we were happy to leave it there. Anyway, there was no way I was going to leave the confines of my room looking like this. I wanted to blend in, not stand out. Pearl also added that we did not the goth gear to go out in. We spent most of the day trying out different looks. Pearl did not have to get Poppy up, as Poppy woke up just after 12. After she had dressed, she sat with Pearl and me, throwing comments our way from time to time, and even used my laptop to look up song videos on YouTube. It was not until 2:30 that the day truly began. Right, girls, Aunt Natalie said. Lunch is in 5 minutes. Then I want you all to get ready. And Poppy, if you think I'm letting you out in those shorts then, you can think again. I looked at the shorts. They were small and essentially sports gear, but I didn't think they looked too bad. However, I also think they needed washing, but that could have been my imagination. Lunch turned out to a light affair of scrambled eggs on toast. Aunt Natalie then ordered that we get ready to go to the fun fair. Poppy took a mere 20 minutes to change from her sports gear to a bright yellow t-shirt and light blue leggings, and had run a brush through her wild hair, though we would not have known it had she not told us. I suspect it was rather rushed. She then had to wait for Pearl and I as we decided we needed a shower. Luckily, Aunt Natalie had an ensuite bathroom. Natalie used the ensuite while I used the house's bathroom. After the show, I returned to my room. I put on white panties and a bra, along with a pair of fishnet tights. I applied a layer of makeup, which included a shade of red on my lips and a bronze mixing to gold on my eyes. I decided that I would hold my hair back using a big black scrunchie. I put on the black leather skirt and white blouse. There were 2 styles of boots to choose from. One pair was knee-length, with a 2-inch chunky heel. The second pair was more an ankle boot, but the heel was a spiky 3-inch. I chose the knee boots as the sole be more suitable if the fun fair was held in a field. They were not as comfortable as the ankle boots, but they would do, and they would be more suitable for the location. I donned a black jacket and headed downstairs to find we were only waiting on Pearl, and she arrived less than 5 minutes later. She had dressed in the matching red denim jeans and jacquard, but she forgone the yellow top in favour of a blue blouse, and she was wearing similar black boots to mine. We were soon in the car on way to the fun fair, and Poppy called shotgun. She was sat up front with Aunt Natalie leaving Pearl, and I sat in the back. The fun fair was in full swing when we got there. Even so, Aunt Natalie was able to park near the fair. The usual smells were hanging in the air. Diesel fumes were competing with the aromas of chips and hot dogs and burgers. The sounds of the rides, the songs playing on the PA systems, and the tinny electronic tunes of the games were an assault on the eardrums. And of course, the lights were dazzling, though in the mid-afternoon light, they were not blinding. Aunt Natalie herded us toward an arcade stall nearest the entrance. Okay, girls. Now if we get split up, or one of you gets lost, we meet up here, okay? This advice received a warm confirmatory response from me and Pearl, but a wail of protest from Poppy. She did want to be treated as a baby, and shouldn't her mum let her act as a gown-up? She had a phone after all. She gave up her protestation when her mum told her firmly that she was still, technically, a child, and would do as she was told. We then decided to split up as Poppy wanted to play the arcades, and Pearl and I wanted to try the rides. So we agreed to meet up again after 2 hours and made our way through the fair. Pearl and I went on the Ferris wheel, the Tornado, a fancy carousel, and another ride called the Starship, one of those zero-gravity machines that pinned a person against the side of the ride using centrifugal force. We then went to the various side stalls, hoop tosses, firing ranges and the like, and I did win a plushie toy for my mum, a large 2-foot dolphin who I decided to call Dolly. I remember promising to win her a plushie elephant, but I doubted she would mind. Of course, we also took a load of pictures on our phones, selfies mostly, but also pictures of each other and a couple of me cuddling Dolly. After the rides and the various stalls, we hit the arcades and played several games which put a serious dent in our purses. We kept bumping into Aunt Natalie and Poppy from time to time, and we met up to have food from one of the burger stands. I treated everyone to hot dogs and candy floss for afters then. With our remaining money, we headed back to the arcades. There was one machine on which Poppy had set a new high score, and she challenged us to beat her score. I had no chance, as I am next to useless at games, though I did have a crack at it. Pearl took the challenge seriously and spent a lot of money coming close to Poppy's high score, but never beating it. Pearl was soon short of cash, and Poppy was now penniless. But Aunt Natalie dug deep in her pockets to give us all one last ride on the carousel. Soon, or so it seemed, it was time to go home with Poppy again, calling shotgun. We were still hungry when we arrived home, so Aunt Natalie dropped us off and then set out for the nearby chip shop to get us some chips for a late supper. I dropped Dolly off in the bedroom. I then took off the boots and stripped off the skirt and the blouse and put on a grey maxi-length skirt and a grey turtleneck t-shirt. I then headed back downstairs to find Pearl in the kitchen buttering bread for the chips. Poppy was already watching Disney+, a science fiction film, oddly enough. Pearl did a double take when I entered. Good God. You've changed quick. Well, that skirt looks good, but it gets uncomfortable after a while. I couldn't wait to get out of it, to be honest with you. Pearl frowned at me. Why wear it then? Because it looks good on me, and I feel good wearing it. I said, ooh, listen to the fashion goddess. Hey, there's nothing wrong with looking good. Do you need a hand? Pearl looked down at the countertop and the buttered bread. No thanks, I've nearly done. You can get the plates out though. Sure, I got 4 fresh plates from the cupboard and set them out on the table. Aunt Natalie entered the kitchen, bringing the aroma of chips in with her. Right, girls, she said brightly. Who got the plates out? I did. We thought we'd be eating in the dining room, I answered. Aunt Natalie chuckled as she put them back. Oh, don't be silly. Tonight is special. We can eat our chips in the living room, and we can eat them out of the wrappers. I've got 4 portions of chips with fish cakes. So, butter up some bread. Oh, you already have. Well, bring the salt and vinegar through, please. She then took the bags through to the living room where a heated discussion was soon taking place. There was no way Poppy was going to restart the film, and Aunt Natalie did not like that particular film, and wouldn't Poppy prefer another film instead? You take the bread through, and I'll get the condiments, I said. Pearl, ever the peacemaker, soon settled the argument. Aunt Natalie relented, and Poppy, grudgingly admittedly, started the film over. I joined them with forks, salt and vinegar. We ate our chip suppers from our laps and spoke our visit to the fun fair, the rides we had ridden, the stalls we had visited, and the fair in general. Though Pearl had buttered more than enough bread for all of us, Poppy took most of the bread. Soon the film was ignored, and then forgotten as the discussion turned from the fun fair and towards the weekend and life in general. Aunt Natalie then asked us what they would be in the future. Poppy said that she wasn't sure just yet, but she had an overwhelming desire to breed horses. That would change through. Probably by the morning Pearl was still determined to become a vet, and Aunt Natalie suggested voluntary work, a position at a local veterinary surgery. And me? I was unsure. I wanted to be a photographer, but I was not sure if I was good enough. Of course, my family and friends heaped praise on my work, but I was not so sure. I was good, and I had a wealth of experience in many different areas. But was I good enough to become a professional photographer? I would need an independent appraisal of my abilities to determine this. This meant that I needed a backup plan, something to fall back on, and that was an easy problem to solve. I had always been practically minded, handy with a drill and a screwdriver. I was often called on by Mum for minor repairs or chores like hanging a painting or a picture. Was construction a possibility? But I also liked cars and motor vehicle maintenance, so maybe a motor mechanic suited me? Though I harboured second thoughts when Natalie pointed out that both professions would wreak havoc with my nails. The conversation soon turned to dreams and fantasies and general chit-chat. It was laced with insults and general banter, but it was light-hearted and good-natured. It lasted well into the night, until the early morning. When we finally went to bed, Poppy was roped into helping Aunt Natalie clean up the wrappers from our meals. Of course, Poppy protested. She was tired, she was ready for bed, and couldn't Pearl or me clean up? But Aunt Natalie was persistent. Besides, Pearl had buttered the bread, and I had brought the forks and condiments through. Poppy eventually ran out of excuses and helped her mum clean up. I went upstairs to bed. Pearl had already used the bathroom, so I had the room to myself. I carefully cleaned off my makeup and had a good wash afterward. Finally, I cleaned my teeth and used the toilet. Back in my bedroom, I got ready for bed. I hung all of my clothes up in the wardrobe and dressed in the plain white panties and nightgown. I climbed into bed tired and happy, but I also felt a tinge of sadness. This would be the end of my time as Chloe. Mum would be picking me up at midday, and I would need to pack my stuff. Not that there was much to pack. I soon drifted off to sleep. It was early when I woke up, ridiculously early. For the longest time I simply lay in bed on my back, staring the ceiling. Eventually, I climbed out of bed and padded to the bathroom, where I emptied my bladder. Then I washed my face and brushed my teeth. Aunt Natalie was downstairs, but Poppy and Pearl were still asleep in their beds. In fact, Poppy was snoring so loudly that I was surprised that she hadn't woken herself up. Back in my bedroom, I took my small case from the top of the wardrobe and opened it up. From it, I took a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt. Then I dug out a pair of socks and a pair of boxer shorts. I took off the nightdress and the panties and dropped them in the laundry basket. I pulled on the boxer shorts and then I pulled on the socks. I pulled the jeans on, pulled a belt through the loops and buckled the jeans into place, and finally, I shrugged my way into my sweatshirt. I looked in the mirror, Chloe was gone, and I was plain old Charlie once more. I was sad to see her go, but I had my memories, and that was good enough. I had some photos as well, and they would keep the memories alive. I turned away from the mirror and shrugged into a pair of slippers. I retrieved my laptop from the bed and started to leave bedroom. A glance at my open suitcase brought me up short. My brown slippers were still in the case. I gazed down at my feet. I was wearing the pink fluffy slippers that Pearl and Poppy had given to Chloe 2 Christmases ago. After berating myself for this momentary lapse in my concentration, I placed Chloe's pink slippers in wardrobe and put my Charlie slippers on instead. That was close, and it could have been awkward had I not noticed. Aunt Natalie was sat reading the morning newspaper when I entered the kitchen. "Good morning, Auntie," I said. She looked up, smiled, and rose from the table. "Oh, good morning, Charlie. Would you like some toast?" "Yes, please. I'll make the coffee." "Thank you, dear." I made mine to the kettle and began to fill it. As it was boiling, I prepared the 2 cups with instant coffee granules, 2 spoons of sugar for my aunt and 1 for myself. "Would you like some jam on your toast?" "I have strawberry or raspberry." "Neither thanks, just butter will do." "Your coffee is ready." "Oh, thank you, Charlie. Just put it on the table, please." I set the coffees down and sat at the table. Aunt Natalie stayed by the toaster, waiting for the white bread to turn brown. "Okay, so have you enjoyed yourself this weekend?" "Yeah, it's been fun, especially last night. That fair was wicked." "It certainly was." "I'm not ashamed I had fun last night." "Oh, Auntie, you shouldn't be ashamed at having fun. My aunt giggled. I haven't had as much fun since your mother and I were kids. She had buttered the 2 slices of toast and put them on a plate, which she set on the table before me. I smiled up at my aunt. Thank you. You're welcome. She sat down at the head of the table. She looked at me curiously for a moment, and then she picked up her coffee and took a sip. And how did it feel being Chloe? I thought about this for a moment. For what seemed to be an innocent and harmless question, it was complicated to answer, and I wanted to answer it as honestly as I could. I would say it was liberating, I said. Aunt Natalie frowned, but the playful smile remained. What do you mean? Well, it was freeing in a way. I was able to be someone else for a few days. It just happens to be a girl called Chloe. Yes, that makes sense, Aunt Natalie remarked. It's as if Chloe is someone else. Someone separate from Charlie, but the same person? But Chloe doesn't have the same responsibilities as me. As Charlie, I mean. I think the best way I can describe it is to say that I like being Charlie. I like who I am, and I like the responsibilities that come with being me. Being Charlie, and I see being Chloe as taking a break from those responsibilities. It's a release, nothing more than hobby. You're wise beyond your years, Charlie, Aunt Natalie said. I shrugged. Yeah, well, I've had a goof few years to learn about this, and I suspect I'll continue to learn more about it into my elder years. Aunt Natalie smiled at me as she out her coffee cup down, but she was gazing at me shrewdly. I think you are the most rounded and mentally healthiest 14-year-old I know. I beamed. Thank you, I said. But I was thinking about she said, I think. Poppy came into the kitchen. She was still in her nightgown and only had one slipper on. Her ginger hair was more than messy, as she had not brushed it. Hey, people, she said brightly. Good morning, Poppy. Would you like some breakfast? Not right now, I'm not hungry. She did look half asleep, actually. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and looked at me. It was as if she was seeing me truly for the first time. Oh, hey, Charlie, how are you? I'm good. You? I will be when I've woken up properly. Hey, can I borrow this? She snatched up my laptop. Thank you, she said and left the kitchen. Yeah? I said to her retreating form. Aunt Natalie laughed ruefully. Don't worry. You can borrow my iPad if you need it. She doesn't delete anything important. At least it's backed up. Pearl entered the kitchen. Unlike Poppy, she was dressed and was wide awake. She had obviously taken care in her appearance. A large Alice band holding back her long blonde hair. She was wearing a frown on her face. Was that your laptop I saw Poppy with? Yeah, she asked if she could borrow and took it before I could say yes. I see. Oh, good morning, by the way. Yeah, good morning. Good morning, dear breakfast? Aunt Natalie asked. I'll sort myself out, thanks. I heard my phone ringing and I looked at the clock. It had only just turned 10. I then dug out my phone and looked at the screen. That's my mum calling, I said. I headed into the living room to answer it. Hi, Mum. Hey, Charlie, how are you? I'm fine. And you? I'm good. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you either. Did the conference go well? Oh, very well indeed. I made a few notable contacts, and we managed to get the 2 contracts which we wanted. We did think we'd only get the 1. That's great, Mum. Thank you, dear. Did you have a good time? Yeah. In fact, I had a great time. I've got loads of pictures to show you. I can't wait. Anyway, I've nearly done here. I've got a couple of things to clear up here, and then I'll set off. I have a bit of shopping to do. So I'll be with you at 12:30? I'll see you at 12:30 then. Good. Oh, we have so much to talk about. I love you. I love you too. See you soon. Mum ended the call, and I stuffed my phone back in my pocket. So I had just over 2 hours left, and Poppy had my laptop. What should I do? I decided to waste some time. I switched on the TV, turned to Netflix, and started watching a film. Hey, Mum. I waited until she climbed out of the car, and then I embraced her. Hello again, Charlie. It's good to see you again. Oh, stop acting like you haven't seen me for a month. You saw me last Friday, and you spoke to me this morning. I know I only saw you a few days ago, but it feels like a lot longer. She hugged me. Oh, I have missed you. I struggled in her embrace. Get off me. I snapped at her, but we were both laughing. She only held me tighter. It transpired that she wanted to spend some time with her sister and her nieces, so I led her inside the house. Mum spent some time with Aunt Natalie before she spoke to Poppy and Pearl. They were in the kitchen for a good 20 minutes before they came out. Mum taken her iPad in with her, which I thought was a little odd at the time. We spent the next 2 hours in the garden, just chatting in general. What we had done over the weekend, what my mum had done, what we planned to do in the future, and no, I was not getting a bearded dragon, no matter how much I begged her or how much I promised to look after it. Of course, I showed Mum some of the pictures I had taken of the derelict mill and at the fair. I had half expected a lecture on the dangers of urban exploration, but my mum was surprisingly complimentary about the shots I had taken. Poppy gave us all a detailed account of the fair we had attended, though only my mum needed, or indeed wanted to know. The plush 2-foot dolphin was a major hit. Mum promised to treasure it and to keep the name. Poppy had wanted to name the dolphin Mrs. Quackerbeak, but even she preferred the name Dolly. We eventually made plans to leave, and the house became a flurry of activity. I grabbed my coat, and we said our goodbyes to each other. I was about to grab my case from the guest bedroom when Pearl came down with it. I had already packed it just before Mum's arrival, so I had left it in the room when she did arrive. It quickly transpired that Aunt Natalie had sent Pearl to pick it up, so I gave it no further thought. Mum and I were soon pulling away in Mum's small but powerful saloon, while Aunt Natalie, Pearl and Poppy stood on the driveway and waved us off. Mum and I discussed our evening meal as we made our way home. She did not feel like cooking, and did I fancy an Indian takeaway? I answered yes, and could we have some poppadoms with it? After a 30-minute drive, we arrived at the large bungalow that Mum had gotten in the divorce when Dad had waltzed off. The house was a little stuffy after being stood empty for 4 days, so I opened the windows to let some fresh air circulate through the house while Mum brought the cases in from the car. Then I prepared drinks for us, coffee for me and tea for my mum. We sat at the kitchen table with our drinks. She had brought her iPad with her. I thought it a bit unusual, she usually kept it in her case, or at the office. So Charlie, did you enjoy your weekend with Aunt Natalie's? Yeah, Poppy was a pain in arse, but that's normal. And did you enjoy your time as Chloe? For the longest time there was silence in the room. Hundreds of thoughts ran through my head in a second or two. How had Mum find about Chloe? Who had betrayed me? How did she know? How much did she know? I couldn't look at Mum for a long time. I couldn't bring myself to look at the disappointment in her face, the shame in her expression, the anger in her eyes. Who told you about Chloe? I asked. You did, indirectly of course. There was a tone in my mum's voice that made me look up at her. Your Aunt Natalie filled in a few of the gaps, but you told me. It was by accident, of course, but you still told me. Do you remember me giving you my old iPhone? Yes, I said, though I was a bit puzzled. She had given me her old iPhone 9s when she had gotten a new model through work. Well, when you take a photo on that phone, she held up her iPad. It appears on here. She opened up the photo gallery app, selected a photo, and held the iPad out. It was a selfie I had taken at the fair. The photo I had taken of Pearl and myself shortly after had won the dolphin. I looked at it briefly before I turned away, closing my eyes, tears of shame forming behind the closed lids. I'm sorry, Mum, I said, my voice low and shaking. I won't do it again. I promise. Oh, don't be silly, girl. I looked at my mum. I was surprised. No, I was astonished too, see a slight smile on her lips and love in her eyes. Don't make promises you know you can't keep. You'll dress up again. And when you do, I'll be there to help you. Then you're not angry? Of course not, Mum said, though a frown put a crimp to an otherwise. Well, I am a little angry that you've not told me earlier, but I can overlook that. In fact, let me tell you why you haven't told me. You thought I'd be upset, ashamed, angry even. You thought that I wouldn't understand it, that I'd make the assumption that you're gay or that you want to be a girl. A part of you even thought that I would disown you. I thought through that list of reasons carefully. Yes, that's exactly what I thought. I nodded slowly. I meant to tell you eventually. You had a right to know, and I had every intention of telling you before you heard it through someone else. You meant to tell me, but you didn't know how to tell me, Mum said. Am I right? Mum was right. How did I go about telling her that her only son liked to dress up as a girl? It was not your standard conversation. Oh, hi, Mum. Yeah, school went great. Oh, by the way, do you know that I'm a crossdresser? I just didn't know to bring the subject up. I just did not know how open that conversation. I understand, said Mum. So now that the subject is out in the open, let's start at the beginning. How was Chloe born? Well, it began 4 years ago when I was with Aunt Natalie for the week, I said. I went on to spend the next hour explaining how I came to create Chloe. I explained how it began with a trip to the school's fancy dress, of how to wore Poppy's school uniform, and how I was not the only boy dressed as a girl. I told Mum how I began to dress as a girl throughout that week, with the eager help of Pearl and Poppy, who treated me as a real girl when I was dressed as Chloe. Aunt Natalie was also pleased to help, buying me clothes and underwear, and she also treated me as a girl. Over the last 4 years, I had perfected my femme persona to the extent that I could pass in public, and most of the people I came across saw me as a real girl, or, if they read me, they did not care. Mum had a few questions, of course. How had I learnt my makeup skills? I used YouTube tutorials from other girls and crossdressers, and I would practice and experiment with Pearl. Had they taught me how to dress so well? Well, they had a hand in it, but I had put my own style together. Was I gay? No. I was attracted to girls. I just liked dressing as one. Did I want to be a girl? No, I didn't think so. I liked dressing as a girl, but I was too young to know what I really wanted. Mum had not lost her expression as I explained my history as a crossdresser and answered her questions. She sat back as quiet descended again in the small but functional kitchen. She was still smiling, and her eyes still sparkled. Okay, I've had a lot of decisions to make over last 12 hours, and your honesty has made things a lot easier. Now, I want you to wait here while I sort out a few things. Okay? Okay. Can I make you another drink? Ooh, yes, please. I rose from the table and checked the water in the kettle as Mum rose and headed out to the hallway. What are you going to do about Aunt Natalie? Oh, well, she thought that she was doing the right thing. She didn't actually lie to me, so she didn't technically do anything wrong. Besides, we're too close to let something as little as this to come between us. I heard her shuffling about our bungalow as she went about whatever she was sorting out, but I was too busy with making the drinks to listen properly. I did toy with the idea of looking at the iPad and taking a look at some of other photographs, but I left the tablet alone. It was my mum's tablet, and I respected her privacy. After 15 or 20 minutes, Mum appeared at the kitchen door. Right, Charlie, grab your case and follow me, please. I picked up my case and followed Mum through the bungalow. We went through the passage at the back of the house past her bedroom and past my room on the other side of the hall to the third bedroom at the end of hall. Since there was only Mum and me living in the house, this room had undergone a wide range of uses. It had been a storage room for the longest time. Mum had used it as a home office for a time, but she outgrew it after a while, and it had become a spare, empty space for a while. Then we decided to make use of it as a spare bedroom. Mum was stood at the door when I caught up with her. "This is your room now," she said. "But I've already got a room," I replied, indicating the room back up the passageway. "That's your Charlie room, yes, but this is your Chloe room." She opened the door and stood aside to let me enter. Apart from the addition of a laundry hamper and a waste paper bin, it did not look that different to me. But I put my case down and sat down at the desk. "My Chloe room? What did that mean?" "I did a bit of shopping before I picked you up," Mum said. "I hope you approve." I began to look in the drawers and saw several sets underwear and tights of all varieties, from plain black tights to colourful fashion tights. In the top drawer of the desk was a full range of cosmetics, everything from foundation to blush and everything in between. There was enough makeup to turn pearl green with jealousy. I opened up the wardrobe and found more clothes. 2 dresses, a skirt and a blouse. "Now I've got receipts for everything, so if there's anything that doesn't fit, we can change it," said Mum. I reached out and took hold of one of the dresses. It was a summer dress, green with short sleeves and spaghetti straps. It felt like cotton. I felt tears building up, but they were tears of happiness. "I don't know what say," I began. "Except thank you, of course." "So thank you, Mum. You're welcome, darling. But if you really to thank me, introduce me to Chloe." Mum left the room, leaving me sat at the desk. I did briefly wonder if this was all some act, that I would dress as a girl, present myself as a girl, and the angry diatribe would begin. I was a weirdo, a pervert, that I was a boy and only poofters and pansies dressed as girls, but as quickly as these thoughts arose, they abated. Mum had seemed so positive and accepting that such thoughts were quickly squashed. Besides, Mum was not that good an actress. After what seemed like an age, I got myself moving again. I decided to unpack my case, so I lifted it onto the bed and opened it up. Inside was the outfit I had worn the night before. The white satin blouse, the black leather skirt, and the fishnet tights were packed neatly on top, and the ankle boots were tucked down the sides. There was even the bright pink box that held my false breast. I decided that this was as good a look as any. After unpacking my toiletries and returning, I undressed and placed the neatly folded male clothes on the bed. I took a light purple bra and matching panties from the drawers. I noted that they still had the price tags on them, so I cut them off. Then I stepped into panties and pulled them up over my bottom and hips. They fit well and were very comfortable. The bra, when I got it on, also fit very well. I slipped the false breasts into the cups, and the bra held the falsies very comfortably. I then donned the fishnet tights. I knew these fit me, so they were no worry. I began my makeup. I applied a layer of foundation, which I sealed with a layer of powder. I decided a light layer would be suitable for the afternoon, so I applied the base sparingly. When that was done, I moved on to the eyes. The eyeliner pencil was new, so I applied it carefully. I was happy with the result, as the liner made the eyes look bigger. Pearl said that my eyes were me prettiest feature, and I could not help but agree. The eyeshadow was a medium brown, and I mixed in a light brown above. It was an autumn look, but the autumn look suited me whatever time of year it was, or so I was told. There was 5 shades of red lipstick to choose from, so I picked a medium shade to apply to my lips. I then applied a light layer of pink blush to my cheekbones, another fine feature according to Pearl. I had held my hair back with a scrunchie the night before, but I decided to wear it loose today. I brushed it to within an inch of its life and used hairspray to give it some body, and soon it was bouncing around my face and shoulders in long, luscious waves. I picked up the white satin blouse and draped it around my shoulders before I buttoned it up and smoothed it out. It was still clean and wrinkle-free, so it looked good. I stepped into the black leather skirt and shimmied into it, tucking the blouse in before zipping the skirt up. Finally, I took the black ankle boots from the case, slipped them onto my feet, and zipped them up. They had a 3-inch heel that was slightly chunky, but I was comfortable walking in them. Now that my transformation was complete, I stood in front of the full-length mirror that was bolted to the wall. I was surprised by the vision that looked back at me. I was no longer the young boy. I was a young girl. She was dressed conservatively and her make was tasteful and subdued. She was dressed as if she was going out for a meal. "Hello again, Chloe. I hope you know what you're doing." I almost hesitated as I made my way back to the kitchen. Mum had seen a few pictures of Chloe. How would she react to seeing the real thing? I found myself stopping in the hallway, wanting to turn back, to rip these clothes from my body, and never dress up again. But something deep down stopped me. I had come this far. I had to go on. Finding the kitchen door ajar, I paused and knocked on the door. "Come in." I heard Mum's voice from inside. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. I walked up to the kitchen table and stood in front of her. "Hello, Mum. I'm Chloe. It's nice to meet you at last." I didn't know what to expect, but I certainly didn't expect Mum to squeal in delight, clapping her hands to her cheeks. Then I was smothered in a tight embrace as Mum leapt up from the table and grabbed me. "Hello, Chloe. Oh, it's so good to meet you at last. Let me look at you." She released me from the embrace and stood back. She inspected me from head to toe, holding my hands out. I withered a bit under such intense scrutiny. Then she nodded. "You look beautiful. Truly beautiful. Do you really mean that?" Mum shrugged as she inspected me once more. "Well, there's room for improvement, but you look tremendous, you really do. Your pictures don't do you justice." I felt my chest swell with pride at her praise, and I was sure I was blushing. "Thanks, Mum," I said. Mum stopped looking at me and glanced around the kitchen. "Well, we can't talk in here. Let's go into the living room." Soon, we were sat in the living room, where we sat in the plush armchairs. I went through the details of my weekend again. This time, I included details of my time as Chloe, showing Mum the pictures that I had set aside, the pictures of me dressed up as a girl. The conversation lasted until the early evening, filled with laughter and barbed but good-natured insults. Then Mum grew solemn. "Okay, I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I love you, Charlie, and I don't want you to forget that," she said. "But I always wanted a daughter. When your father left us, he robbed me of that chance. I've always loved you, Charlie. You've never disappointed me, and I know you never will. But now, seeing you as Chloe, it allows me to live that dream of having a daughter. I hope you understand?" I was taken aback by her request. I knew she loved me without condition, and I was grateful beyond measure. But to learn that she had wanted a daughter was something of a shock to me, and the life I had. Now, I had a decision to make. Get it wrong, and it would be a disaster for both of us. It would lead to angry words, recriminations. It could possibly tear us apart. But get it right. It was a long time before I spoke, and I chose my words very carefully. "Mum, I love being Charlie, and I love being your son. I don't want that to change. But if you want a daughter, I'll be happy to play that role for you." Mum started crying with pure emotion and sheer joy. Unable to speak, she simply held her arms out. I moved to her side, and we held each other tightly. I thought I heard my mother say thank you, though she could just have been clearing her throat. We held each tightly for a long time. Eventually, I spoke. "Stop crying, Mum, or you'll ruin your mascara."